So we're live and 9 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chris, roll call, please.
Division 1?
Here.
Division 2?
Here.
Division 3?
Here.
Division 4?
Here.
Division 5?
Here. All right, now we have public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
Wait, we have two commenters. Both of their names?
Yeah, Debbie Tutunchi from Farm Bureau. This is M. So as a point of history, this is her second NID meeting. The first one, she was in a book bag on my shoulder, and it was our first Plan for Water meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she barked at the end of it, so I wasn't as wise as I thought she was. Anyway, not on the agenda, but I'll reach out to all of you at the same time. Our membership barbecue on Saturday has been postponed.
Good choice.
I'm sure you all got the message. I think Farm Bureau members as well as the public are a little bit heat fatigued, and it's going to be really hot in Penn Valley. So still, even though it's cooling down to 104. So there you go. That's my notice.
Thank you, Debbie.
And tomorrow should hit 114 in the valley.
Yeah.
So. Comment.
Don Conan from the south end of the valley. More than anything, I have some questions about the watering situation. I understand we have water in Bowman Lake, we have water in Jackson Meadow. We just can't get it. That's the situation. We can't get it because PG&E's ditch collapsed. Not their fault. Their generation station going down makes me wonder if they put off the maintenance of it so they could make a $2.25 billion of profit. So they're making all this profit. I'm wondering, I'm being damaged by PG&E. Has there been any talk of compensating us?
So Don, coming up really soon will be a workshop on PG&E and the water.
Okay.
And that would be time for all your questions.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's right after the consent agenda.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and we've been having this every meeting with them.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering I couldn't make a couple meetings.
Yep. Thank you. Any more public comment? So public comment for items not on the agenda is closed. We'll go to the consent agenda.
To approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. Any comments? Public comment on this consent agenda? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 1?
Yes. Got confused there.
Division 5?
Yes. Thank you. Now, we have a workshop with PG&E. All right. So, and thank you for coming. We're going to get updates, and that'll be a time for all questions PG&E.
Okay.
And water supply.
Good morning, Tyler Kovich with Pacific Gas and Electric. Thank you for having me. So we were here 2 weeks ago, and we had quite a lengthy update. I'm going to try and keep today's update a little bit shorter in that we've made very good progress over the last 2 weeks since our previous update with respect to Spalding and the South Yuba pipe. the last couple of weeks, we completed all the work on the structural columns and the new structural foundation wall in the Spalding 1 tail race. So we're happy to report that work scope is done at this time. Completed all the welding on the new discharge liner. It's fully installed, welded out. All the grinding necessary is completed. And as of this morning, all the pressure grout to lock that liner in place has been placed, and it's currently curing and drying. So that was a pretty big step in this whole process. So again, good news from the project team there.
How long does that take to cure?
I think it's actually only going to need to cure for about a day. So it's curing today, and then the next phase in the process is to plug up the grout ports that were used and weld those, and then finish grind them. So while that grout is curing, the team has already placed the valve back in its position and kind of dry fit it. So we're just waiting to final torque those connections. And during this process today and probably tomorrow, we're doing kind of cleanup and demob of the non-essential equipment and tools in the powerhouse. So the team is also actively installing the auxiliary equipment. You know, this main valve has a lot of control piping and sensors and other equipment to protect it and to operate it correctly. So we're working actively to get that all back installed. And we'll be starting to test it next week, I believe, at this point. So I think
Originally, 2 weeks ago, the welding was the critical path.
Yep.
That's wrapping up. So what's the critical path now?
critical path now is this grout curing, welding those plugs, and then final torquing of everything. And then we will look to actively start filling up that tunnel sometime next week, and that's kind of the critical path. Yep, so make sure there's no leaks, obviously, and that everything comes back to normal, and then we can start our testing phase.
How long will it take to fill up that process?
Plus or minus 48 hours. We got to fill that tunnel nice and slow so that we don't damage it.
So you're saying the 10th today, 17th on Wednesday, by the 20th or 21st, we have water in?
We may have water in the tunnel, hopefully, yeah, by the end of next week. That's our goal. And then that'll put us into the active, wet testing phase kind of that week and into the following, leading up to the 30th.
Bill?
At the same time, I wish.
No, during your testing, can you send us water?
Our plan, yes, is to attempt our plan is to attempt to send as much water as we can through the testing process. I talked to Chip yesterday actively about that and let him know it's going to be intermittent as we ramp flows up and down through that process, but we're going to do our best to divert as much water as we can down the South Yuba Canal through that process, because we understand the rotating outages that are ongoing and also getting progressively worse as levels drop there at Scotts and Lower Scotts. So.
Yeah, our priority is to try to get water to Scotts Flat as soon as possible to eliminate the need for those rotating outages due to the capacity issues.
Get it into Cascade Canal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who is going to inspect the work and when those inspections will be, inspected and approved?
We have on-site PG&E inspectors, and we also have our engineering firms inspecting it with a quality plan as we're doing the work. And then that progress and the checkpoints we report back to our federal regulator.
So when you say your engineering firm, is that a third party?
So
or is it within PG&E?
The engineering firm is a third party, and we also have internal. The biggest part from a quality perspective is the welding process to make sure that those welds are quality. So every time a weld is laid down, they then grind it, and we have a process where they go in and UT scan it. And then every, let's just say, third or fourth weld, they go in and grind it out to see that it's solid and there's no voids, to ensure that the welder is following the proper procedure.
I'd like to point out, Don, this is a workshop, so you can pop up and ask questions anytime.
This
Yep.
is it, yeah.
So go for it, as you have questions, just, yeah. And you can get up as many times as you want if you have different thoughts, as long as we keep advancing the discussion.
And Dawn, I did hear your question earlier, and I think a similar question was asked at the last meeting, and we had Brandon Sanders here last meeting, and he kind of provided a response to that. The team here today is more on the project side, and so I'm gonna kind of defer answering the specific question about PG&E providing funding back to customers of NID, to a follow-up meeting. I'm not really prepared to answer that, or the right person, so if you have specific questions on the project, I'm happy to take those questions.
But get your questions out in the open also.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that they're a part of the record.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know the farmers right now are very nervous about the rotation.
Mhm.
Some are gonna get hurt. And guys who need to irrigate every day on veggie crops, and they go out for 3 days or maybe 4, I'm not sure how you come back from that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So with respect to Spalding 1, from the update last meeting, we are on track. Our return to service date, we're still publicly saying July 30th, and we're holding to that as far as the schedule goes and the progress that we've made. We look to fill the tunnel next week and then start our testing phase. So we'll be keeping the staff up to date on our normal twice-a-week calls as we progress through that. And hopefully 2 weeks from now at the next board meeting, I've got continued positive news on that front.
So I guess my question is to you, and also maybe Chip, doesn't look like there's any way we're going to avoid this first rotation. But is there?
Chip Close, Director of Water Operations. The short answer is no, we're not avoiding this next round of rotations. They are scheduled to start tomorrow. What I can offer up, though, is that we are on the verge of making it versus not making it. So we initially thought these rotating outages, we'd be cutting back about 5 CFS on each canal and do the rotation. We now think we can get by with about 1 or 2, which means that the folks at the ends are still going to see these outages. They're still going to get 2 to 3 days worth of no water at the ends. And then we'll turn them on, get full board, and rotate to the next one. So I guess the message is, yes, they're still coming. Hopefully they're not as bad as we initially thought, but they are still coming. And again, it's a capacity constraint in our system. We have enough water at Scotts Flat, we just can't get it to them.
Chip, that's amazing, though.
That is amazing.
Well, if you would have asked us 3 years ago if we could survive this long without a supply through PG&E, we would have told you no. But
Right.
a lot of hard work, a lot of emergency backup systems, and a lot of staff time on both agencies here, we're making it, so.
Chip, are we still paying $2,000 a day for the diesel for the pumps? Is that still happening?
Yes, and I will also add, that's part of what we're struggling with, is we
Yeah.
have 3 different pumps at Siphon Lane, and we're holding them together with duct tape and baling wires.
Mm.
So we've been having trip outs on those pumps almost every night. So staff's going out 1, 2 in the morning, refiring them, making sure they make it through the next day. So it's been a struggle, but we've learned a lot. We've learned where to focus our CIP funds for the future to get us through another incident like this. So, yeah, we're learning as we go.
So, I was told that at an NID picnic, annual picnic, you and former Director Nick Wilcox sat down and came up with the idea of putting the pumps in the canal, and it saved us.
It absolutely did. There are some things we can improve, but it has gotten us through this, so it was a good call.
Is NRCS money available for these pumps since they supply water to agriculture?
Good question. Something we'll look into.
We're gonna need to replace them.
Well, I think Tyler has a little bit more to
PG&E can
update us
check.
on the South Yuba side of it, if you guys
Yeah.
finish that.
Well, thank you for great work,
Well, that's snarky.
whole team.
Hi, excuse me, under the weather, sorry for my voice. I'm Amanda Hickson, I'm the Farm Institute Director at Sierra Harvest, and I just wanted to ask a question about how you selected which canals were gonna go into the rotation first. And I was curious with what Rich was saying about the veggie farmers. We don't have that many really substantial veggie farmers in the county, but the ones that we do have, I'm curious if there could be any selectivity of like, we're gonna make sure that the substantial veggie farmers canals are the last ones to have to rotate because they're gonna be the hardest hit. So I think
Great question, thank you for that. The way we selected the canals that are doing these rotations are, number one, first and foremost, these are services that are not used in-home. So it's not a public health and safety supply for these folks. There's about 400 customers that are subject to these rotations. Of those 400, these are all just strictly irrigation water, no in-home use. Secondly, these are all canals that are downstream of choke point that we're suffering from. All the other canals that we can get water to, we're going to continue to supply. That's really how we determine the canals that we did. One last item is that the 4 different rotations that we picked all used about the same amount of water. So it's easy to turn one off, turn the other one on, so on and so forth. And that's really it. And we are hopeful that this one round, this four rotations, will get us through a point where we have a little bit of water flow in the South Yuba Canal and stop doing that. So that's what we're doing.
So then maybe you could talk about the South Yuba Canal in your presentation and let us know what the status of that is.
Yeah, so we can always go back to questions on Spalding 1, but with respect to the South Yuba pipe, which you can drive up Bowman Road and take a look off the point there and see the progress we're making. Again, all positive progress in the right direction. All of the new concrete footings have been placed. They're disassembling the form boards on those today, and they're actively working on installing the saddles or cradles, so that we are ready to set the new pipe on it, mid to late next week. We have the heavy lift helicopter scheduled, and we've reconfirmed a couple times now that it's not going to get pulled away for fire support. So yeah, we're looking forward to setting the new pipe on the new foundations and saddles next week. And we'll then start the process of fitting it up and welding the joints together.
You could make the case that this is fire support.
Absolutely. So yeah, once it's on the new foundations, it's kind of a fit up and finalized process. So we're looking forward to getting to that point. The new pipe is staged at our staging location up near the site. It's all been coated and painted appropriately. It's a little shinier than the rest of the pipe that's there, but it won't take but a couple of winters to let it blend in. So.
And what is your timing for the restoration of the flows in the South Yuba?
Still shooting for late August. We have the 24th date officially published, and we're still tracking to that. No delays there. One thing I've been cautioning everybody on is the pipe will be ready, and we are ready to test Spalding Unit 2, which provides the water to that pipe. As soon as we're done testing the Spalding Unit 1, we'll be able to move over and hopefully test Spalding Unit 2 prior to that pipe being ready, so that we're confident in that unit being ready to go as soon as the construction team gives me the thumbs up to put water in the pipe. So still July 30th for Spalding 1 and still August 24th for Spalding 2 and the South Yuba pipe.
One little adder to that, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, but when we get to a point where the tunnel is full, we're hopefully going to get a little bit of water in the South Yuba Canal that will alleviate some of that pressure on the emergency pumps, and that should happen before that August 24th date. So there's a little bit of reprieve in there for us, and we're really looking forward to it. So a little bit more to the story.
That's the 27 feet.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes. Do you have backup pumps in case we need them?
No backup pumps to get water over the dam. I think we went.
Not over the dam, but out of DS Canal into Cascade, I mean, or do we go for rain for water or what?
So, as I mentioned earlier, we have that emergency pump station that we've been using. We were having trouble with the pumps. We came up with an emergency to the emergency backup plan. So we've dragged out a couple portable pumps out there as well. And so if we experience some difficulties with the station itself, we have another plan. We can use portables. We will then short more customers, but we're hopeful we don't get to that scenario. But we do have plans in place should we need it.
So a question so we have people who are using the water for domestic use, the raw water. Have we looked at the fact that we could go for a grant or something to put 2,500, 3,000 gallon tanks on their property it'd be a lot cheaper than trying to keep the canal full for them?
So yes, and we do offer some incentives right now for storage tanks through our conservation water efficiency team.
Right.
But ultimately, Rich, our goal is to get these folks not use this water in their homes.
I agree, but
When they fill out an application for water service through NID, it says that our irrigation water could be subject to outages up to 2 weeks. We don't generally do that. We're much more reliable than that. But yeah, we try to focus on folks who really need a well or need some other alternate source if you want to use this in the house.
And I understand all that. But now it's kind of hurting some farmers who are producing food, and this is an old system where people got used to using raw water for domestic uses. How do we bring them into not using raw water for domestic uses faster than we're doing it? I mean, is there a way we can really speed this up?
Not through this particular situation, but it is on our list of items to start focusing on, because you're correct in that we should be getting all of the constructed conveyances over with.
We do not allow new customers to do this.
Right.
No.
Which is your point, that if this wasn't the case, that instead of every fourth day, it might be every seventh day?
No.
During a rotation like this? I'm trying to understand
I think it was
what this would do.
priority setting. So we're selecting canals based off of ensuring the in-home.
Yeah, I understand that.
I think it's that.
So then if we didn't have to do that, you would do the rotation, but it wouldn't be so often for those 4 canals that you picked. Is that the point?
No, it could be essentially different canals. The canals that.
Avoid the ones
Yes.
that may be like, the vegetable growers.
Right, but also keep in mind that some of the constructed conveyance in-home water users are also farmers. So it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just wondering, like, the mutual up by, or down by, from here, from my house it's up, by Camp Far West, that mutual, those guys are all using that water for toilets and what have you. So are you suggesting that you rip that out? Because their wells produce 1 or 2 gallons per minute.
I think that's what we don't have it needs a holistic plan that looks at a lot of different options, and there's a lot of legal issues that go in with it. That's why we're not prepared to even address this right now.
I'm not against it. It just seems like
it's a lot.
there's going to be some places where this is going to be really difficult.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to hear from a bigger audience than we have today.
Well, it needs an actual agenda item. It's way out of our.
Yep.
Out of
PG&E.
No, I just wanted to bring
You
it
or
up.
Chip, do we have updated projections for Rollins through October 15th now?
Yes.
Hmm.
Chris, if you can pull up Rollins for us, please.
Maybe while Chris is pulling that up, Tyler, I have a follow-up question on the South Yuba Canal. So, the fellow who was here last 2 weeks ago gave us a really good detailed critical path definitions for where we were with regard to Spalding Glen. Is there a critical path that you can describe for the bringing on the South Yuba Canal, and whether, if there's something that goes wrong there, how that impacts it?
Yeah, I think the biggest critical path on South Yuba Canal is getting the helicopter flight next week and landing that pipe successfully on the new foundations. Once it's in place, they'll be able to push it around and make the connections, and I don't think that is necessarily a critical path, but getting it from the staging area safely without any incidents and set on the new foundations is the critical path. So we should be hopefully past that by the end of next week, and we'll have some good confidence moving forward.
And how long do you think that process, the helicopter bringing the components, flying them over?
We have the helicopter scheduled for 3 days. We're hopeful that it only takes 1. But we've secured the ship for 3 days in case we have any issues that arise during the first couple of days.
Okay, so for Rollins forecast, what you see in the slide, the red line there is what our forecast was. The green line sitting on top of it is actual data. So we are tracking right along with where the forecast is. I think if you give us another 2 weeks, you'll see we're actually doing a little bit better than that, but not much. The other thing to focus on is you can see all those colored lines, the purple, the blue, and the light green. Those are all boat ramps. You can see by the end of the month, they're all going to be high and dry. So we actually went out and visited the boat ramps yesterday, and most of them are down so low, they're in the muck and the mud, you really can't use them anyway. But the good news is we bottom out. So we forecast Rollins to bottom out at about 34,200 acre feet, and then hover and or steadily increase a little bit after that date, after the return of service on July 30th. So that's the good news. You can see Deadpool down there in the red and dotted line. So
Does the Deadpool number take into account the sediment?
yes, it does. The struggle with the Deadpool number, though, is that we really haven't been this low in a long time. And so, like I said, we went and visited the facility yesterday, and you're seeing now that whatever influent flow we have is pushing the sandbar down into the reservoir. So all of that Deadpool stuff's going to change after these kind of events, and we'll have to reanalyze. But that's where we're at for today. The next slide, I have one for Scott Flat as well.
Is there an opportunity with the elevation dropping to do any kind of maintenance or scooping out of the sand or any of those kinds of things?
No, you'd have to do an environmental analysis to remove that sediment and decide where you're going to take it. I do think the one opportunity we have is to clean the boat ramps while we have time. There's quite a bit of mud buildup on those. And then Scott's Flat, same sort of situation. The red line is what we project. The green line is actual. We're doing a little bit better here in that Deadpool is quite a ways down there. We expect Scott's Flat to bottom out at 25,300 acre feet. Scott's Flat's a little bit different in that the return to service date on July 30th, it's going to give us a boost in the arm with the flows coming in, but it won't offset our total demand. So that's why you see that continue to drop until basically mid-September, mid to end of September. But again, we forecast enough to make it.
On Rollins, what's the carryover goal? Not for this year, but normal.
The normal is about 44,000 acre feet.
Like 10,000 below that. We're expecting to be there.
Yes, today we're at 46,000 acre feet. So we're about 2,000 acre feet from our normal low point, and we will pass that next week.
But that doesn't include PG&E water.
That total does, yes.
The carryover?
So it's 44,000 minus the 10,000 for PG&E.
They're included in those totals.
And the
Right now they have, I don't know, it's roughly 4,500 acre feet of that in Rollins and PG&E water.
So do you have projections post end of irrigation season?
No, not beyond that point. It really is up to what Mother Nature brings us. I mean, we can do some averages, and if you run the averages, Rollins will fill. That is not a concern for us. Scott's is more the concern. It just doesn't have a very big watershed. But with the South Yuba Canal repair in place, we plan to run that canal at its maximum through the winter to refill Scott's. I mean, obviously during storms and whatnot, we'll cut it back to a safe wintertime flow, but we're going to use the heck out of that canal bring it on to get that refilled.
Cross your toes, too.
Right, cross your fingers.
I think the good news is that Rollins usually fills and spills every year. So
Right.
we're fairly confident in Rollins. It's, as Chip said, and Scott, so we'll maximize deliveries into there as much as possible.
So I have a question, with regard to the actual South Yuba River flows. You know, there's been quite a few lives lost and so on there. And, I happen to know these folks who were upstream, I think it was from Edwards Crossing, and they crossed the river along the sandbar, and they made it across this way, and then the flows, you know, increased and the depth increased while they were over here, and they had to be rescued because they couldn't get back across. And what accounts for those difference in the flows?
Snow melt, winter.
Yeah.
Well, I know the snow melt, but I mean, it all happened within a period of a few hours.
That's why people should be staying out right now.
No, I agree, but I just was curious if there was an answer as to why that, like, did you?
Well, right now, the South Yuba River and the spill from Spalding is all based on natural snowmelt runoff, which is pretty much diminished to this point, and our controlled releases from forward ice are the main contributor to the flows in the river right now, and we have not fluctuated those.
Haven't fluctuated.
We've been,
Really is interesting how.
our gauging station is at the Bowman Lake Road Bridge crossing there. So that's our last point of monitoring the South Yuba River. So anything downstream of that is subject to natural side flows. But we do not control or gauge beyond the bridge there.
So this may be a question for Brandon, but I know you guys have been somewhat proactive in trying to get the message out to the community about high river flows and everything. A lot of the people who come from out of the region don't see those notices. Sometimes, often, English is not the first language. I know the county has been pressured to extend their messaging. Can you guys do that also?
I think we had that question last time, and Brandon took that back, and both Paul and made additional public media, social media posts, and we did recheck and confirm that our normal signage is in place. We did see some vandalism at a couple of sites, not upstream near Fort Ice, and we are actively replacing the signage in those locations.
Not working.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you need to put a person down at Bridgeport, at the 49er Bridge at Edwards? Just greet everybody who comes in and tell them,
We're just having poor water safety all around. We've had issues in our reservoirs as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, I know, it's
People need to be wearing life jackets.
tragic. Yeah. life
They
jackets
do.
is-
Sacramento's handing them out free. Maybe that's what PG&E should do in this case.
They need to stay out of the river.
They need to stay out,
Understood,
yeah.
but they're not. So, yeah, anyway, yeah.
I understand that, we're going to start these flows into the South Yuba. My question is, when does the operation get back to normal as far as PG&E feeding the South Yuba?
So on July 30th, we'll be able to put flows through Spalding 1 into the Drum Canal, and we'll then, out of a side spill from the Drum Canal, which we call our YB244 station, we will feed South Yuba Canal until the time that South Yuba pipe is repaired, and then we'll use Spalding 2 and the South Yuba pipe to feed the South Yuba Canal as our normal operation. And the side spill from the Drum Canal will be cut off, and that is considered our backup or our emergency way to feed the South Yuba Canal.
So that would be August 22nd when you,
24th.
what's your ballpark figure there?
Yep, August
Unless
24th.
something happens, that would get us back to normal flow. Now, the board, once we have normal flow, what does that mean for the user? Obviously, it'll take some time to get things back up and running, for the users. Is there some kind of delay to that process, or, you know, does it take a week to get us back to where we can feed all the canals, or,
No, as Chip referenced, once they start doing testing and are able to move that 20 CFS through the blow-off, we should be able to not have to do canal rotations anymore. The canal rotations aren't related to water shortage. They're related to a capacity issue in the DS canal and being able to pump up to the cascade.
okay?
So to answer his question, we did have a 20%.
We'll likely keep that in place just to assist with carryover.
It was gonna need to go all season.
Yeah, we'll continue to watch things. As you know, water use is primarily dictated by how hot it is, and it's been extremely hot, so people are using a lot of water.
So that'll be out of case, like, as we go.
Yeah.
So, and I'm on the Pearl Barnes ditch. That's, I'm just thinking that it's probably a low priority. It's, I think 1.25 miles long, and I'm the last user. And I understand later in the summer that NID is dumping water into Wolf Creek so that the Pearl Barnes ditch can pick up water. And that's why I'm wondering about getting it back to the normal operation.
I recommend you talk with Chip offline so he could speak with you specifically about your canal concerns.
And one more for PG&E. Some people have been damaged by this, obviously. And is there any mechanism for PG&E to compensate those people for their losses?
I think I kind of referenced this earlier, but PG&E's interaction is directly with NID through our coordinated ops agreement. So I think that question has got to be directed to NID, and they can come back to PG&E around.
Yeah, I think that the last time Brandon indicated that there is no specific funding mechanism for PG&E to directly have some type of reimbursement or compensation to customers or people impacted within the county. Outside of that, any other coordination, as Tyler just referenced, will be completed between NID and PG&E under our current agreement that we have.
And one other thing about the Pearl Barnes ditch, being the last person on it, I'm at a spillway on the end of the ditch, and it seems like we're running, I don't want to turn in the ditch man or anything, it seems like we're running a lot of water over that spillway. I mean, to the tune of, 8 to 12 inches of water running over that spillway. And I know there's customers downstream from me on Little Wolf Creek and on Wolf Creek itself, but I just wonder that we're not running. If the water's available in the creek, that's one thing, but I'm just wondering if we're supplying water to that pickup through NID. So
I would recommend we talk with Chip offline about that one as well.
okay, all right, good. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Right.
Any more?
For me, thank you very much.
Any other public comment, workshop, directors?
Great news.
Stays that way.
Keep that helicopter.
We'll keep you updated through the staff the next couple weeks, and then, like I said, hopefully we'll be back at the next board meeting with continued positive news.
July 24th.
I can hope. One caveat, I want to be very careful on the flows during the testing statements, okay? That's going to be very intermittent depending on the stage we're at testing, right? We're going to turn flows on, do tests, we're going to turn flows off, analyze the results, turn flows back on, and that's going to be a process. So when we say we hope that mitigates some of the canal issues going on the South Yuba, I'm very hopeful that happens, but it is going to be intermittent depending on the stage and how the testing goes. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up that that's next week we get the tunnel full and that's magically solved, right? I'm hopeful that we can maintain some steady flows at times, but we are going to have some intermittent ups and downs. Testing is just that, it's testing. right? We always run into things. We're prepared and we're ready to work through them with the team. But as those come up, we are gonna have to work through them and go through periods where that unit is shut down and water's shut off while we analyze. And
those intermittent flows that you just described, is that going to, or how will that impact the South Yuba River?
Good point. I think we had that question internally and from the public as well. We're hoping that once the tunnel is filled up and as our flows from Fordyce decline, we're going to see the South Yuba River flows decline and that spill hopefully end, and we'll be back to our normal flows of around 10 CFS in the South Yuba River sometime mid to late July. I'm hoping the week of the 22nd, somewhere in there, flows are pretty significantly reduced and that we have the ability to move water through Spalding and control those flows
I guess the one
at a steady level.
is when you say intermittent, so you know, in my head, you get a big flow and then you shut it off. So that big flow will eventually make downstream where you've got humans recreating. And what is the expected elevation differences when you're doing?
Those big flows are hopefully going to be contained to the Drum Canal and the South Yuba Canal, so I don't think the public downstream is going to see any impact.
Okay.
The impact is going to be on the South Yuba River flows significantly declining as we come off spill and we're able to control the elevation in Spalding.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you, and see you in 2 weeks. So now we have, yeah.
One more question. Board and, just my own curiosity, through this situation, would, Centennial Reservoir had any effect, or is it too far downstream?
It would help a small portion of that service territory downstream of where it would be located. Any storage, you know, that's our issue, right, is it only helps on whatever branch it's on.
Right, so it would have hardly made a difference, basically.
And it would have helped for some customers, but the reality is it wouldn't solve any of the situation.
Okay, thank you.
It'd still be in rotations right now.
All right, we'll close that workshop, and we go to the workshop for the Deer Creek Project Conduit Exemption.
All right. Yeah, where is, I'll grab it.
You got it. I'll grab this, you grab that.
Trial period. Across the river. Get back.
All right, are we ready?
Yep, that was real.
Okay, so as the board is aware, we had acquired the Deer Creek Powerhouse and South Yuba Canal from PG&E. We took ownership over it kind of in January 1st timeframe. The Deer Creek project is what it's referred to from a FERC perspective for the hydropower licensing, was originally a part of their Spalding project. And at some point during their relicensing effort, PG&E had kind of parsed out Deer Creek into its own animal. So once we acquired it, we started taking a look at the system and the FERC regulations, and we've determined that it actually, because of how small it is and that the majority of the water is used for water supply, not for generation of power. Generation of power is just kind of an ancillary benefit of the system, and the Deer Creek Powerhouse is extremely small. We determined that it does qualify for what is referred to as a conduit exemption. And so what that essentially means is that if you are granted a conduit exemption from FERC, you do not have to go through the extensive relicensing process every time your license comes up.
Yeah.
So we have started the initial legwork.
Yeah, right. I think that.
All of them, one by one?
Meet the,
So, one of the things we have started to do is we did some preliminary work in coordination with the resource agencies related to this concept to see if there was any huge red flags. We've also spoken with FERC, and I think that we are ready now to actually apply for a conduit exemption. So this would be a good thing for NID. It would reduce future costs, reduce regulatory reporting, and as we've stated, the system is so tiny that it doesn't really need to have a full license.
How many hydro units do we have that might fit into this category?
That's my question. He said Rollins, I go, that's a conduit. What is it?
It's a big one.
Yeah, those would be, everything that's part of the Yuba Bear project now when it applies. We have looked at one potential of removing some of the upper tiny reservoirs from the project, but that hasn't gone anywhere. So that would be probably the next consideration if we were to consider further exemptions.
Has the Chevron decision affect this at all?
Not this, no.
This applies no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, the Chevron decision, I don't see how it bearing.
No real exercise of
Yeah.
an agency's discretion.
Yeah.
In interpretation of its own regulation or statute. So this is an existing exemption. It's pretty straightforward. You check the box or you don't.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Excellent.
So we have been talking a lot about this system, so I won't go into details, but as we've stated, it's a fairly small system. It primarily consists of the South Yuba Canal, Chalk Bluff Canal, Deer Creek Forebay and Dam, which is extremely small, and then the Deer Creek Powerhouse is about 5.7 megawatts. So as the board's pretty aware of how we operate the system, so that's how we move water into Scotts Flat. PG&E currently releases our daily demands, plus they have a 5 CFS from Spalding Reservoir through the Spalding 2 Powerhouse directly into the South Yuba Canal, which we know is not occurring right now. And then water's released from the Deer Creek Powerhouse into the South Fork of the Deer Creek. There's no real minimum flows underneath the current FERC license, but there are some minimum flows related to some of our other regulatory permits that come into play when the canal is flowing, but it's extremely minor. So yeah, this is kind of interesting. South Yuba and the Chalk Bluff canals were built in 1858. So yeah.
Why do they have two different names? I've always wondered.
I don't know, probably two different miners that were loring.
Built separately. And
Yeah, connected them, probably. And then the Deer Creek Powerhouse was started providing power in 1907. And that is a very cool powerhouse. It's very quaint. It's extremely difficult to get to, though. So I don't know that you'll be having a field trip, a public field trip there, but we could take you out there by yourself.
Four-wheel drive, you have how many parking lots?
Yeah, it's quite the ride.
I've been there once in my life. It is very cool.
It is a cool area,
It's
yeah.
100-year step back in time.
Yeah, it's a very quaint, cute powerhouse.
Helicopter for 3 days.
Yeah.
So as the board's aware, the acquiring of the South Yuba Canal and that project on the Deer Creek Powerhouse took a long time, but we are proud owners of it now. Let's see. What is going on, Chris? Oh, there we go. And this is just a quick project map. We've been talking a lot about this for some time now. Very small diversion. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to stress to the regulatory agencies. It is a very small amount of power that is generated, but it's all then rediverted for consumptive uses. So why the conduit exemption? You know, it basically checks all of the requirements under the Code of Federal Regulations. So it's existing hydroelectric facility that's operated and maintained, and it has all of the current structures are all part of it, so it can be bundled up into one project. It generates power off of existing water supply conduit, so wasn't built just for power. The power was ancillary to moving of water and for water supply. Generating capacity of less than 40 megawatts. It doesn't have a huge dam. The Deer Creek Forebay is extremely small. I mean, it's maybe, I don't even know if it's as big as this whole building, so it's a small, little, tiny, you wouldn't even call it a lake. It's like a little pond. and it discharges water it uses from generation back into the South Fork. It's the conduit exemption, it's similar to a license, but it is not as involved and usually comes with less conditions. And the biggest benefit is that you don't have to go through relicensing, which we know can be expensive and can take decades. So part of the process is we would then concurrently, we would submit the conduit exemption application, and we surrender the other application for water delivery facilities that are now currently under license. And then if approved, the facilities would no longer be under FERC jurisdiction, but under federal and state jurisdiction that applies to all other non-FERC governed facilities. So we would still have to comply, if we were to do some type of project on the system, we still have to comply with all environmental regulations, all environmental permitting regulations. It doesn't get you out of doing anything. And if FERC were not to grant the exemption, then we would still have the existing license and have to go back through relicensing.
What's the worst case?
We work on this for 2 years, they say no, and then we have to go back through relicensing.
Or give up the power plant.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen where they require you to decommission power plants. Like, I guess eventually you never get a new license and then you have to decommission it in a decade. I mean, I guess that could be a potential, but I don't foresee that happening. More likely you'd have to go back through licensing. So that was it. We just wanted to kind of update the board on where we were at and how that was going. See if anyone had any big concerns or comments.
Good move.
Yeah, good. I think it'll be a good move.
Excellent.
Cool.
Any comments? Don't see any on the line. All right, so we'll close that workshop. General managers report.
We don't have a lot to report. Chip just reported kind of on the state of water supply, so that's been going good. Other than that, we've been up to our usual summer activities, and we do have the director of hydropower systems recruitment going on right now, and that's been going really well, so we're excited to see the final candidate list at sometime soon. And then I think that's all about the big things we have going on. Greg did go to the farm commission this week.
The Ag Commission last night?
Ag Commission last night.
Yep. Last year, Ag Commission last night. So,
how'd that go?
Monday night. Monday night.
2 nights.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I did.
It went very well. It went very well. They were all very stunned at the prospect of Rollins dropping so rapidly. Encouraged them all to go take a look and see what's going on there. But other than that, everybody was, doing the double cross as well, just like we are. Hoping it all works out just fine.
So far, they have enough water to keep the crops going.
Yeah, everybody seems okay down, as far as I can tell.
We haven't heard any big complaints yet.
I think the district has done a great job keeping the canal going, especially during this heat wave. It's been tough.
Yeah. The heat wave should come to an end here quickly.
Sunday.
Supposed to be, yeah.
Someday or Sunday?
Someday.
Someday.
I'm so tired.
Sunday. Any more, Jennifer?
That's it.
Justin, before we go?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay. Chris, you want to start?
I just want to, tell you one. Somebody asked me if the farmers are up in arms over the water situation. Said they've been good job of getting the message out and they understand. I think I haven't had a phone call about this, so that's the good news. Message is getting all the water flows itself. Cuba is not getting out to those people who need to hear it. It is to the farmers.
Yeah, the farm bureaus have been really integral in helping us get the messaging out, so that's been very welcome and we're very appreciative of it.
Yeah, Chip and I have an online Zoom event with the Scotts Flat homeowners tomorrow late afternoon. You got it? Okay, great.
It's tonight.
tonight? No, it's tomorrow, it's the 11th. Well, I don't know, we'll handle it offline.
People need to get together.
Yeah, anyway, so it's a good thing, because we have much more to report now than when they originally made the request. And we
Yep.
can talk to them about
Right.
where the flows are, where the, you know, all of it, the storage and so on. So, yeah, we should get together offline, because I double checked when I came in here and had a Zoom invitation from the host for tomorrow. So we'll double check. Okay. And otherwise, you know, I just want to thank everybody, you know, at NID, all the staff and your team, Chip, and, you know, you guys are doing an incredible job. And my only comment about that is I'm sure there are lessons that we've learned that we can take in the future to operate in maybe more efficient or different ways that can save some water. And I'm sure that you're right on it. Thank you.
We don't want to be doing this every year.
No, we don't want to do it every year, but I'm just saying that I bet you they learned some things that you didn't know before, right? So, okay, thank you, that's it.
Karen?
I just would echo Ricky's comments that the district has done an amazing job keeping the water flowing and being extremely responsive to customers that are having issues, and I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln High School FFA commitment to corduroy tickets are available. I will be there. Come. Great
Commitment,
event.
what,
It's their yearly, dinner.
commitment to corduroy?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
It will be at Fowler Ranch,
Oh, this corduroy.
which, if you haven't been, is spectacular.
Pam.
Is that Fowler Nursery?
First rate, right?
No, it'll be at the brewery,
Oh, Fowler.
which is on the other side. Yeah, so if you haven't been, it's beautiful. And, welcome DeMar DeRozan to Sacramento. By the only King citizen.
I don't know who that one is.
No idea what you're
It's
talking
the
about.
biggest deal since Chris Webber came here.
Every year deal.
Is that why you're wearing purple today?
No.
I just want to tie this up. Thank you, everyone. Incredible. As PG&E's variables, you know, get narrower and narrower, we have less chance of something going sideways.
Yeah.
And to the farmer, I mean, guys who are putting water, you can't believe how fast the veggies are growing and how much they're producing. It's unreal. The use of shade cloth
Mm-hmm.
is helping. Even in high tunnels, tomatoes are just coming on every day in massive amounts. Even basil in a high tunnel in the summer is growing beautiful. Why? Because there's water.
Yes.
Yep.
Water.
And it's just incredible how fast things are growing. So, thank you, everybody, and, it's incredible, and, yeah, nicely done. Nothing else?
So-
See you in 2 weeks, and, we're adjourned.